Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is August 21st. It'll be that for another half hour. It's just after 11:30. I'm here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment, and we've got plenty to talk about tonight. Plenty to discuss. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's do it.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. I am so glad to be here with all of you. It's later than we usually do this. This is a late night live stream, and it is also Monday night. So, if you're somebody who has to get up for work in the morning, you might not be here. Maybe you're catching this afterwards. That's all okay. That is totally fine. But I'm glad to be back. I took the weekend, I guess Sunday, I took the weekend off. Shout out to Funky Lollipop. Funky Lollipop and we did some great outreach yesterday. Yesterday after church, Funky Lollipop and we were in Washington Square Park in New York City. And we were approaching people with a survey that we took, the survey that we're using for outreach and getting to know the minds of the people, the Center for Political Innovation survey. We met people, we got people's opinions about the world and world events, and I'm going to talk about that later at some point. I'm going to talk about the outreach that we did because I want people to be aware of how important it is to do outreach, and that kind of fits in with what I'm talking about tonight. But I'm glad to be back. I went to the movies with my wife, saw Oppenheimer with my wife this evening. It's part of why I'm doing this so late. But yeah, we're going to have a conversation here tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Always important to talk about different things. We're going to talk about some topics tonight. We're going to do some serious reflection because there's a lot of things that are going on. And what I'm going to say tonight is very much about the future of CPI. Now, if you haven't had a chance, really go and watch the great documentary that Peter Coffin made of our recent CPI event in New York City. We're going to show some of it on the stream later tonight. So you'll get a kind of a preview of it if you haven't gone to see it. Jeff Young, the candidate for Congress out in Kentucky, he loved it. He's been promoting it. And it was a great documentary that Peter Coffin made, just premiered earlier tonight. Just a great film about the criminal injustice system and how it's manipulated by money. I just wanted to mention that and make sure people are aware of that's happening. My new book is being finished. It's already written. The proofreader is sending it back to me tomorrow. Then I'm sending it to the layout guy, and then we're uploading it to Amazon. The cover is already done, from what I understand. We're moving ahead. So that book is about to be out, and everyone who has read the book so far is blown away by it, just utterly blown away by it. It's weird. Sometimes, just kind of like I did with the Kamala Harris book, one topic gets you talking and you can say very important things that you wouldn't have thought to say if you weren't talking about a specific topic. And that's what my new book is doing. As soon as the cover is available, I'll be promoting it. You'll see what the title of the book is, and it's going to ruffle some feathers. So there's a lot of things going on in our universe. So just quick reminder for those of you who may not be familiar, the way this works is I give my opening remarks. And while I give my opening remarks, I am writing down people's super chat or rumble rant or Rockfin tip questions. And then from there, we do a roll call. We find out who's on the other side of the camera and who's watching. It's always a great, diverse audience that we have watching these streams. And then from there, after that, for the rest of the night, I just answer your super chat questions or your Rumble rant questions or your Rockfin questions. So if there's something that you would like me to talk about in the second half of our program, the best thing for you to do is send in a question. And those of you that are watching this live, you are in the privileged minority of having the ability to make this program go however you would like it to go. You get to point things however you would like them to go. So I urge you to use your power for that purpose. I urge you to send in super chats, send in Rumble rants, send in Rockfin tips, and get me talking about what it is that it's important to you. Use your power. With great power comes great responsibility, as we all learned from the Spider-Man movie. You know, if you have something you want me to talk about, send a super chat, Rumble rant, or Rockfin question. And you know, shout out to Funky. Like I said, Funky and I, we did outreach in Washington Square on Sunday, and it tired me out. It was a hot day. This is me and Funky. We were in Washington Square with our surveys. You can see our surveys. We asked people their opinion about various issues. It was great to engage with the masses of people, to teach people about what the Center for Political Innovation is, and our approach also to get people's feedback, find out where people are at politically, what's on their minds, how it relates to our agenda. Thank you, Funky. And we need to be doing outreach all over the country. And all of that relates to what I'm going to be talking about for tonight. So I guess with no further ado, I'm going to jump into my opening remarks for tonight. I'm going to jump into my opening remarks for tonight. So there we go. Folks, a lot has happened in the last few months. You know, the Center for Political Innovation, we've really shown the world that there is no question that we are still in existence, that we still have energy, we still have the capacity to pull off activities and operations, to spread our anti-imperialist message. We still have the capacity to recruit and to expand. We've had a great conference. We've done a lot this year. February 19th, we were sponsors of the Rage Against the War Machine demonstration in Washington, D.C. And then afterwards, we hosted an amazing reception for Scott Ritter. It was really great. Then in March, we had the Summit Against Hypocrisy, which was a big conference that included a lot of big-name speakers. Jyoti Brar flew in from Britain. Garland Nixon and Dr. Wilmer Leon attended. Scott Ritter also attended. It was a really amazing event. Nick Brana from the People's Party also attended. Peter Coffin was there and made a great film about it. That was really, really tremendous. Shortly after that, CPI confronted the so-called president of Taiwan when she was in New York City, begging for more weapons to escalate the United States into more hostility with China. We confronted her on the streets of New York City. That was bold and epic. After that, CPI, we had a national training school that we convened in the state of Missouri, where we gathered for 3 days. We had 3 days of intense study and training, got to know each other. That was beautiful. I'm still editing some of the speeches and talks that were given there. I know Tyler is working on that as well. Then July 10th, we had a great event in New York City called Money and American Injustice, where different people, including friends of ours who are lawyers and others, spoke about the legal system, how it's rigged against low-income people and working people. And just tonight, then, the film that Peter Coffin made about that great event was released. Now, on August 6th, we were sponsors and we participated not just in New York, but all around the country in the Humanity for Peace mobilizations. Oh, got a super chat question. Very good. In the Humanity for Peace mobilizations. that took place, and that was really great that we participated in it. We have no regret about participating in it. We're very proud to have participated in it. So we've shown the world that the Center for Political Innovation is alive, and that the people who continue to tell people that we don't exist or that we dissolved, we did temporarily shut down between August and November of last year, but we're zooming ahead. Memberships are coming in. We have 110 members that are paying dues. We have weekly meetings. Most weekly meetings have at least 17 people that attend them, sometimes only 15, sometimes as many as 22. We have weekly Zoom meetings. We've just formed a central committee to make sure that we maintain regular contact with each member. So we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot. However, we've accomplished our mission for the first 8 months of this year, which was to let the world know that we are capable of getting shit done. And in fact, we're doing way more than we did before. In the year of 2022, we only had 2 big events. And so far in 2023, we've had 5 major events to show the world that, the people who continue to claim, like the Kiev Post, this CIA Nazi publication that claimed that we went away almost as soon as we were formed, that was a lie. To show the world that we're still back in business, that we're still doing stuff. That mission has been accomplished. That mission has been accomplished, and it's been accomplished beyond flying colors. I cannot imagine this conference being accomplished with as amazing success as we thought it would be accomplished. If you want to talk about a comeback, we came back and then some. We have done more in 2023 than we ever did in 2022, than we ever did in 2021. We are on fire. We're marching ahead as an organization. But this is where the but comes in, right? There's always a but, isn't there, right? There's always a but because we're not satisfied. We're not satisfied until we see an America where every child gets a decent education and is treated as an asset, a valued asset by society. Until we see the Midwest and the South being reindustrialized, until we see high-speed railway connecting the West Coast to the East Coast, until we sign an alliance with Russia and China and Venezuela and Iran and North Korea, until the CIA is dissolved and the FBI along with it, until we enact our 4-point economic program and the oil and the natural gas beneath our feet becomes the property of all the people, and we enact an economic bill of rights for our citizens, until we have seen the American rebirth that we dream of, we are not going to be satisfied. And every achievement that we carry out is going to be not only celebrated, but roundly criticized. We're going to criticize ourselves and say, how could we have done better? How can we do better next time? How can we get better results than we got, even though we are satisfied with what we have? How can we interrogate ourselves about how to do better? That is just how we have to approach things. Might be tempting to rest on our laurels. Might be tempting to say, all right, we did a lot. We did way more than they ever expected us. People who thought CPI was done last August, boy, were they wrong. And, brush the dust off, go take a vacation. Might be tempting to do such things. Might be very tempting to do such things. But the way my mind is, and the way our organization is, and the way we yearn for something better, and the way the world situation has gone, we're not going to let ourselves do that. We are going to constantly be interrogating ourselves, constantly asking tough questions, constantly looking for flaws that can be fixed, not to complain, not to tear ourselves down, but to improve ourselves. We're constantly going to be interrogating ourselves about how we can advance. That is just the nature of who we are. When it comes to our own achievements, we are never satisfied. And that is one of our winning attributes. Because I got to tell you, I look at the Communist Party USA, and they have achieved nothing in about 30, 40 years. And at no point do they go, oh shit, we've got a problem. The Workers' World Party that I was in, they had just got an even smaller office than they had before. When I was with them, they moved to a smaller office. And just a couple months ago, they moved to an even smaller office than they had before. Right? Most of the communist groups in the United States of America, most of the so-called revolutionaries are becoming less and less relevant. And while communism is wildly popular among young people on the internet, it's more popular among the U.S. public than it's ever been, the actual organizations and those who are dedicated to building a real anti-imperialist and socialist movement are becoming weaker. And we are determined to not do such a thing, to not fall into that pit. And so we're going to constantly be interrogating ourselves about how we can do better, because that is the road to success. The road to success is never being satisfied. The road to success is constantly wanting to improve. The road to success is constantly saying to yourself, okay, that was good, but it wasn't good enough. What do we do next? And it's not pleasant, right? That's not necessarily the road to happiness. That's not necessarily the road to being at peace with the universe and being in balance, right? Many psychologists may even say that this is the road to unhappiness. But regardless, this is the road to getting done the work that needs to be done. We have to be constantly interrogating ourselves. And that said, some weird shit happened in the last couple of weeks, right? Some weird shit has happened in the last couple of weeks. I'll just be honest with you. And if you know what I'm talking about, or you think you know what I'm talking about, keep your goddamn mouth shut. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's not important. And I'm not just referring to one thing. I am referring to about 5 or 6 things that have happened. Right? And I honestly don't know what to make of them. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know what to make of them. And part of the reason I'm keeping my goddamn mouth shut, and you should too, and if you're in the chat, please keep your goddamn mouth shut, because the last thing we need is a big argument on the internet. Some weird shit has happened in the last couple of weeks. And it's not good. It's not the end of the world. It's not a huge deal. It's just weird. And honestly, I don't know what to make of it, and neither do any of us. And we may not know for a long time. But what we do know is that there is a big effort on the part of the U.S. ruling class to incite anti-imperialist forces against each other, to sow distrust and discord, to create rivalries and suspicion, and make anti-imperialists not trust each other. During the lead up to the February 19th Rage Against the War Machine rally, they ratcheted that up like to levels that I had never seen before in my life. Right? In the lead up, I didn't even, I met with Nick Brana ahead of time. And I met with Nick Brana ahead of the rally, and I said, we want to sponsor it. We sent in our contribution. We made a decent contribution to the rally. And I said, can we have a speaker on the main stage? And Nick Brana said, the way things look, that's not possible. And I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that, And he said, but Elizabeth Young, if you want to have a speaker, Elizabeth Young, if she wants to speak at the closing rally at the White House, that's fine. And I said, okay, that's great. And Elizabeth Young did speak at the White House, gave great remarks over the bullhorn to the crowd in front of the White House. She did a great job. And then we had a great reception after the Rage Against the War Machine rally. It was well attended, at least almost 200 people, between 160 and 200 people packed in to the room to see Scott Ritter, to hear the speeches, to eat the food. It was really great. It was really tremendous. Beautiful music was played, and Tyler did a great job, and Jetta did a great job, and Elizabeth did a great job, and everyone did a great job. It was a great event, But in the lead up to that event, I was not even speaking, mind you. I didn't even want to speak. I wanted Elizabeth Young to speak. I was hoping that our president of CPI could be on the main stage because we were contributors. Didn't work out that way, but we got to speak at the end. I didn't even want to speak. because I knew about all the drama that was going to go into it, right? And people continue to claim I did speak at the rally, which I think is hilarious, right? I mean, and you know, there was a fake website made for the Rage Against the War Machine rally that listed me as a speaker and said I believed in a violent form of Leninism invented by Alexander Dugin, which is just like there's so much incorrect there. I've always advocated a peaceful transition. Alexander Dugin is not a Leninist or a communist. I mean, whatever, you know, but in the lead up to that rally, my phone was exploding. And keep in mind, I was not even a speaker. I was not a speaker. Elizabeth Young only spoke at the closing rally. She wasn't on the main stage. And my phone was blowing up with gossip and rumors and egotistical criticisms. Every single one of those speakers was mad at another one of the speakers. Every possible innuendo or rumor about one group of people not liking another group was being promoted. There were people claiming that Nazis were planning to attack the rally. That was false. You know, there was all kinds of shit going around. And, you know, Scott Ritter was speaking, and then he was disinvited. And then he was allowed back, but he agreed to then step back to take one for the team. And they were promoted, you know, it was all over the internet. They were attacking Scott Ritter, even though, and then a lot of the people that attacked the rally over Scott Ritter didn't end up even coming anyway. So it showed they were frauds, right? Even though he wasn't part of it, they still didn't show up. So they were frauds, but a whole lot of bullshit happened in the lead up to the rally. And it was a psychological operation. They even made a fake website for the rally. Like, that's how insane it was. It was an all-out psyop to get anti-imperialist forces to fight with each other. And it was ugly. It was ugly. And we did the right thing. And we said, you know what? We're sponsors of the rally because this rally is really important. And we're going to have a nice reception afterwards because we want to give a platform to Scott Ritter, even though he was unable to speak at the actual rally. We did the right thing. We kept our heads down and we kept out of it, which was a really good thing on our part, right? But I had never seen the psychological operations ramped up that high. Like, one of the things that was happening, and I couldn't believe this, is in the lead up to the rally, I was doing these YouTube live streams. I don't know if you saw, but underneath the live streams, the comments section on my YouTube videos would be, "Oh my God, Caleb, I can't believe you said that about Jackson Hinkle. I'm going to go tell him." I didn't say anything about Jackson Hinkle in the whole stream. "Oh my God, Caleb, I can't believe you said that about Haas." I didn't say anything about Haas. I didn't talk about Haas or Hinkle. But people were leaving comments under my videos like, "Oh my God, I'm going to let them know." I mean, they were ramping it all up. They were ramping it all up, right? And there was all kinds of weird shit sent to me, claiming people had said things they didn't say, going to other people saying I had said things they didn't say. They wanted us all terrified to go to that rally. They wanted us all to be so anxious about the other people that were there, to be so angry at the other people, to all think, "Oh my God, I can't be seen with that person." They ramped up their psychological operations. And honestly, I bet you that rally would have been 10 times the size it was if they hadn't done that. It worked, right? I mean, the rally was still huge. It was still the most important anti-imperialist rally that has happened in decades. However, I'll tell you, it worked. A lot of people got nervous and didn't come to the rally. And then after the rally, there was an endless amount of shit talking. People were yelling at CPI because one of our members had a Russian flag. And, you know, there was all kinds of stupid stuff. But our position, right? I just watched it tonight. So there you go. Our position was that we want unity of all anti-imperialists, you know, and that was our position. Was that we wanted unity of all anti-imperialists. That is still our position. Oh, wow. I see we've got 2 Rumble rants. Is there a song? All right. Is there a socialist song that is like Richmond, North of Richmond? That's a good question. What are some good songs from the American Civil War? Oh, great. There you go. Great. 2 great Rumble rant questions. Both of them are appreciated. And you're on the list. But and thank you, Jamie Terminer and Delta V. But in the lead up to the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and then afterwards, there was just a huge amount of, I don't know what you want to call it, psychological operations, efforts to make people afraid of other people, gossip, rumor mongering, innuendo, exaggerations of little things. It was a psychological operation. It was a complete psychological operation. And during that time, I had a lot of conversations with people. And I referred to one of the things that I've heard people say about Stalin, which is that Stalin had the strength of silence. That one of the ways Stalin was able to just outmaneuver his political rivals was they would do something and he wouldn't respond. And for weeks, they'd be waiting for Stalin to respond and he wouldn't respond. In chess, if you play chess, you have to move. But in life, you don't. And that one of Stalin's strengths was that when he was doing battle with Trotsky, when he was doing battle with Bukharin, before he became the leader of the Soviet Union, often there would be attacks on Stalin. There would be decisions that would go against what Stalin wanted, and there would be no response. And Stalin and his allies would say nothing. They had the strength not to be baited. And what's interesting is I watched a very, very good presentation by Minister Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam. And he talked about how after the movie Malcolm X was released in the early 90s, remember that? Spike Lee made a great movie. It's a very good movie. Called Malcolm X. It's a great movie about the life of Malcolm X. It's not accurate in a lot of ways. It follows the autobiography of Malcolm X, which was not written by Malcolm X. It was written by Alex Haley, who was a Republican, a conservative, and it was based on interviews Alex Haley had done with Malcolm X. So the book was based on a book that Malcolm X didn't write, and that book is historically inaccurate, and the Nation of Islam has a whole critique of it. But Minister Louis Farrakhan was talking about how in the 1990s, when the movie Malcolm X came out, the movie Malcolm X strongly implies that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X. And after the movie Malcolm X came out, in the black community, there was a huge surge of support for Malcolm X. There were a lot of hats that had X on them, T-shirts that had X on them, and there was like a revival of fascination and interest in Malcolm X in the black community. And that film made it sound like the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X. And so what did Minister Louis Farrakhan do? He silenced the Nation of Islam. And he said, for 90 days after this movie came out, we ain't saying shit. We ain't saying nothing. And the Nation of Islam, their offices all over the country were ringing with phone calls from the media, from the press. And the New York Times and other publications referred to Minister Louis Farrakhan as the arch nemesis of Malcolm X. At the Nation of Islam, they gave no interviews. They made no public statements. And they were silent for 90 days. For 90 days, they said nothing. Absolutely. For 90 days, they said nothing about the movie Malcolm X, about the history of the Nation of Islam, about Elijah Muhammad. They said nothing. And the reason that they said nothing is that Minister Louis Farrakhan believed that there were forces that wanted to use the atmosphere created by that movie in the black community to enable the U.S. government to target the Nation of Islam, and that the black community would not defend them. And that they believed that there was going to be an effort in the aftermath of that film that implied that they had killed Malcolm X. There would be a move by the U.S. Department of Justice or other forces to try and put them in jail, try and put them in prison, and that anything they said would lead to an escalation of that narrative, that nothing they could say, because they don't control the media, they don't control the television and the newspapers, anything that they could say would blow up in their face and be used to help justify some kind of government crackdown on the Nation of Islam. And so the Nation of Islam was silent for 90 days. And then after 90 days, Minister Farrakhan, if you watch the speech, he says, Home Alone 2 came out. And people moved on from talking about Malcolm X. And they could resume their activities as the Nation of Islam. They could orient their supporters and those who listen to them about their feelings about it. And it wouldn't be part of a national conversation, and they wouldn't be helping set the stage for their own prosecution and persecution. Very, very interesting. And again, they were pulling a page from Stalin. A page from Stalin. Not responding. Not responding. Not engaging. Very smart. Very, very smart. And I've thought about that. I've thought about that over the course of the last year, because there are many situations that arise in our community that the best thing we can do is say nothing. The best thing that we can do is say nothing. And in a lot of cases, the things that people come to us with aren't even true, or they're exaggerations, or they're rumors, and the best thing we can do is say nothing. But, and that might directly apply to the situation we're in if what was happening was that somebody was coming up with a new set of smears or lies or exaggerations or revelations about CPI. That doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. Not saying it won't happen. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, there's many angles you can work with me, right? They've done everything they can to attack me personally, and there's many different angles they can come at me with, lying through emphasis, etc. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem to be the case that there's some kind of imminent attack coming. It could happen. You never know. But what has happened in the last few weeks is that there has been some very disturbing, since the August 6th demonstration, there have been some very confusing and weird things that have happened. I mean, one of them is already out there. Somebody called me on the phone. I do not know who they were, claiming to be someone that I know. And based on the conversation we had, it was not this person. Claiming falsely, it appears to me, to be somebody that I know, urging me to go to a protest on Sunday against Navalny supporters, telling me that various political allies of mine were in agreement with this. And when I spoke to those political allies, they were not. Oh, we'll talk about that. Good call, John. claiming that various political allies of mine were involved in this protest coming up, and they were not. And somebody tried to lure me and was desperate to lure me to an event where there were a whole bunch of Russia haters that were assembled in New York City. They were trying to lure me there. And they were telling me other people were involved. And apparently they were trying to lure other people there as well. They were calling up other people, telling them that I was involved when I was not. And that somebody, I don't know who, and I don't know why, was contacting people and telling them that I was trying to get them to this anti-Russia rally, to do a counter demonstration. And I was called by other people, and they were trying to tell me that this was happening. And I don't know what was going on. And I'm not going to get into specifics. There's a lot of allegations that have been leveled and all that. I don't care. Right? And I don't care. Right? I don't know what was going on. I know what has been said in the aftermath and what statements have been put out. And I don't care at this point. I don't care. And that's not the only thing that happened. There's been a lot of other things that have happened. None of them really directly concern. Well, I wouldn't say that. There have been disagreements. There have been disagreements and arguments that have happened, some of which I've been directly involved in. And I got to say this. Right? This is, I am just being honest with you all here. I have emotions, as you all are aware. You know? And it's one thing when someone insults me. It's one thing when someone disrespects me. It's one thing when someone, and I'm used to that, right? On the internet, they have said every dirty thing about me they really could ever say. And I'm used to that. But when people disrespect you guys, and by you guys, I'm not just simply referring to everyone who's watching. When people disrespect the young people and middle-aged people and older people, when people disrespect the people who have given themselves to join the CPI, when people disrespect the people who have become dedicated members of the Center for Political Innovation, when people disrespect you guys, when people diss you, don't treat you right, treat you like like you can be taken for granted, treat you like you aren't important, like you aren't valued, treat you like you don't belong places. It gets me much angrier because I love you all. I really do. I really do love my CPI comrades, my CPI cadre. You all are really, really important to me. I made a decision for reasons that I will never discuss on these streams, that I will never have children. I have no desire to ever have children. I just don't want to do that. And neither does my wife. But having an organization of people, having people that I can train and educate, that I can enable to find their own strengths, that I can enable to learn about politics and take up history's challenge, that is the most rewarding thing to me. And so when I see people disrespect you, I'm almost like a parent. You don't touch my kids. You know what I mean? You don't touch my kids. You don't touch my people. You don't touch my people. And I'll got to tell you, you want to get under my skin, don't attack me. I shouldn't say this on here because I'm helping my enemies here, but I'm just being honest. You want to get under my skin. You want to see me lose control. You want to see me get angry. You disrespect my people. You disrespect my CPI comrades. You disrespect the people that have given their time and their energy to build the Center for Political Organization, and you're getting on the fighting side of me, brother. You're getting on the fighting side of me, right? You can call me every dirty name in the world. You can call me a Nazi. You can call me a white supremacist. You can call me an evil rapist, pedo, whatever you want to call me. You touch one of my cadre. You touch one of my dedicated soldiers. You touch one of my people who has made sacrifices, who's decided to get off of the internet and into this revolutionary organization and this movement, who's made sacrifices for doing so, who's decided that they want to learn. They've taken on the humility of admitting they don't know it all, but they want to be involved in something, and they have just dedicated their time to it, and they might make mistakes, and they're learning, just like I might make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and they have given themselves to this group, and they made sacrifices. You disrespect those people, you're getting on the fighting side of me, brother. You are gonna get the worst reaction out of me you can get, right? I admit that I will lose control when people come for one of you. I have got your back. I have got your back. I am on your team, and nobody, especially not someone who claims to be our allies, has the right to disrespect you and to do it in front of me and to expect me to do nothing about it and expect me not to be angry and expect me not to punch back. I will punch back. I will protect you. I have your back, and no one is going to disrespect you on my watch. And you've got that from me. I am not going to let you get kicked around. I am not going to let you be insulted. I'm not going to do it. I love you. I love you all. Sincerely, I do. And honestly, there were some people that weren't treating you right. And I think they know that now. And I made a commitment. I made a commitment to you. I made a commitment to these people. And I made a commitment to the anti-imperialist movement overall that I will not go public with this. And I won't. And I won't. And it's not going on the internet. I'm not talking about it on YouTube. I'm not talking about it on Twitter. I'm not talking about it on Facebook. And I've urged everyone else who's involved not to do that as well. And I did not make a scene in a public place, and I will not do that as well because I am professional, and I owe it to all of you and to the anti-imperialist movement not to make this turn into an internet mudslinging contest, because that's exactly what the enemy wants. They want another internet mudslinging contest. And I saw that, and I know they're running psychological operations, and I know they're trying to incite us against each other, but I also know I have to protect my people. And I can't let my people get kicked around. And I can't let people spit in my children's face. And I can't let people disrespect my community. And I have to fight for you. And I've got a loud voice. And I've got an angry side. And honestly, I said a lot of things I regret. And there's probably a few people I owe an apology to. And they will get that apology in due time. But that said, none of this belongs on the internet. And there's a lot of other things that have happened that have absolutely nothing to do with me, that I've just watched happen in other organizations. And there are things like what happened to me where I got that phone call and inviting me to go to a protest, telling me other people were involved. There's things like that I don't even know what the fuck that is. And I still don't know. I have no clue what the hell that was. And I have heard so many different angles and interpretations of it. And I don't know, and I don't care. But that brings me to my point for tonight, which is we got to pull back. We got to pull back. We got to pull back. We're not pulling back from each other. We're sticking together like comrades. And we're not pulling back from the masses. We're not pulling back from the masses. We're definitely not pulling back from the masses. We're escalating outreach. But in terms of coalition work, for the next few months, CPI is pulling back. We're pulling back. We need to step back from coalition work at this time. Doesn't mean we'll never do it again. And it doesn't mean we're burning our bridges. We don't want to burn our bridges. We want a relationship with all anti-imperialist forces. Anyone who's against sending weapons to Kiev, we want a relationship with you. Anyone who's against, piling weapons into Taiwan, we want a relationship with you. Anybody who wants to stop the low-wage police state, stop the attacks on civil liberties, stop the witch hunt and the prosecution of the Uhuru movement. You know, anybody who was with the Rage Against the War Machine rally, we're with you. And we might fight, and we might be mad at you about something you did, or we might be scared or confused about something. We still want a relationship with you, and we don't want to burn bridges. We don't want to burn bridges. You're not our enemy. If you were part of the Rage Against the War Machine coalition, you are not our enemy. We might fight, we might argue, but you're not our enemy. And we want a relationship with you, and we want to work with you, but not now. But not now. Not now. Not now. The time has come for us to strategically pull inward. Not pull back, not retreat. We're not retreating. In our battle against the low-wage police state, we're going to escalate our activities. In our battle against the forces that won a new world war, we're going to escalate our activities, but we're going to do it by ourselves. For the next few months, our focus is on our upcoming national convention, which is set to take place in Portland, Oregon on December 2nd. And for that national convention, we are focused on getting CPI's message out there, filling that room of 200 people with human beings that are there to learn more about CPI, not about somebody else, not about some celebrity we're flying in, not about some other organization that wants to work with us. We want that room full of people to learn about CPI. And for the next few months, we're focused on building CPI. We're focused on the Center for Political Innovation expanding its membership. Our goal is that as a result of the lead up to our Portland campaign, we expand the membership by 20%. We would like to have 25 new members of the Center for Political Innovation by the end of the year. 25 new members. That's not a goal that would be hard to reach. I think we can recruit 25 new people very easily. We want to expand our membership by 20%. We want to expand our social media viewership because we're experiencing a huge amount of social media suppression, and we want to expand our viewership. And we want to solidify that which is already there. And that's what the morning messages are about. The morning messages that we're doing on the YouTube channel, that's to keep our members engaged with CPI. And that's why we formed a central committee. We now have the board of directors and we have the membership, but now we have a central committee to make sure that every member has somebody who's frequently in touch with them and keeping them in direct communication with the leadership. We're taking dramatic moves to centralize CPI activities and to expand CPI's ranks, but for the time being, we are pulling back from coalition activities. We build rallies in the next couple months between now and December. They're going to be CPI rallies. If we go out and leaflet in the next couple months, we're handing out CPI palm cards. We're handing out CPI literature. We're doing the CPI survey that we're taking to people. That's what we're doing. We are pulling back from coalition work because we don't want to get caught in the crossfire. And it's not because of the disagreements we've had with other people. It's the disagreements we're watching. And I'm watching a lot of disagreements right now between different anti-imperialists. I don't know what to make of them. They're weird as hell, honestly. They're weird as hell, and I don't want to get caught in the crossfire. I don't want us to get hit by a stray bullet. Right? We have had our fair share of disagreements. I've said things I regret. I've yelled at people I consider to be friends. I've had to be tough with people and do that, and I'm going to have to apologize to some people in due time, and I will do that. I'm a humble guy. I know when I've lost control. I know when I've said things I shouldn't have said, and I have no problem apologizing when it needs to be done. But that said, we got to pull back. because I don't want us to get hit by a stray bullet, because I'm seeing shit again. What the hell happened with that person who called me, right? I have heard about 4 different interpretations of what that was. None of them make any goddamn sense to me, number one. And number two, they're all scary as shit and confusing as shit. And I know people are then taking their baggage and interpreting it. And all I know is that somebody lied to me on the phone, somebody who is not who they claim to be, because they desperately wanted me to be in a place where there'd be a bunch of Russia-hating Navalny supporters who could kick the living hell out of me. And they tried to convince a lot of other people to go to the same spot and told them that I was involved in it. I don't know why they did this. I don't know what happened, and I don't care. I do know that I'm not the only person to have reacted to this, and that there was quite a reaction to it, and that there's a lot of different people interpreting it in different ways, and I don't care at this point. All I know is I don't want to get caught in the crossfire. I don't want a stray bullet to hit me and to hit our people. We have to be safe. And that in the lead up to the August 6th rally, there was a lot of weird things that happened. And in the aftermath, there were even a lot of weirder things that have happened. And I look, and it's not just us. I mean, again, I'm looking at stuff that's happening with people in different organizations that is very sketch and confusing. And we got to pull back. We got to pull back. We have to focus on building CPI. Because at the end of the day, and I say this with all due respect to our allies, at the end of the day, only we have the answer. And, people that are in different organizations with different perspectives, they don't want to hear that. But I know it's true. Only we have the answer. Nobody else is going to put forward the solutions that we're going to put forward. Nobody else is going to explain things the way we're going to explain them. Nobody else understands what I laid out very effectively in this book. No one understands that except us, right? We understand that the crisis is rooted in overproduction and the tendency of the falling rate of profits and the rise of artificial intelligence. We understand the difference between a revolutionary organization and a counter gang. We understand about divisions in the ruling class and Bonapartism. We understand that U.S. society is in the process of collapsing into illiberalism. Interesting. We understand that. We understand this. No, none of these other people understand it. Not the way we do. They have one piece of the puzzle. They're against things going the way they're going. They're opposing the low-wage police state. They're opposing the danger of New World War, and that's great. And they're our allies. They're not our enemies. But only we understand this. And the job of the Center for Political Innovation as an educational think tank, our job is to get more people to understand it. That's our job. And they're not going to understand it through the coalition work. They're not going to understand it by us, us being, one part of a bigger coalition. That will be necessary, and that is important. And we're not saying we're never going to do that again, but for the time being, we are focused on building the Center for Political Innovation. That's what we're doing. And hopefully, in the next couple months, these other forces can get their shit together. And that's what we're doing. We're getting our shit together, right? That's what we need to do. We need to get our shit together. We need to operate in a more centralized manner. We need to recruit more members. We need to utilize our membership more effectively. We need to get our own shit together. So this is a great time for our allies to also get their shit together, and good for them, right? People need to get their shit together sometimes. But we got to pull back. We got to pull back. And this brings forth a couple historical examples for me. But one of them is that the greatest achievements of the Communist Party of the United States came in a period called the Third Period. 1928 to 1935. During those years, the Communist Party USA did amazing work. That wasn't the height of their influence. The height of their influence, I would say, came in 1936, 37 during the Popular Front years. But regardless, they still did amazing work during this time. But during that time of the third period, they did it all by themselves. Right? This is important. But one of the classes that is part of the Saxton lectures that we give goes over the history of the Communist International. Immediately after the Russian Revolution, Lenin says we have to form a new international revolutionary socialist communist movement because the old communist parties sold out, supported World War I. The old socialist parties, social democrats, they sold out and supported the war. So Lenin formed the Communist International, the Comintern. And all over the world, new parties were formed that were called the Communist Party, as opposed to the Social Democratic Party or the Labor Party. Right? David Fox recommends History of the Three Internationals. I recommend it too. Most important book you can read. But Lenin formed the Communist International. And the first thing that Lenin did was he had to fight against ultra-leftism, because there were many people that joined the Communist International because the Bolsheviks had had a violent revolution. And they joined it because they believed in violent revolution. But they didn't actually understand the Bolshevik methods. They didn't actually understand the organizational brilliance of the Bolsheviks. All they knew is the Bolsheviks killed some motherfuckers. They killed some sons of bitches, right? They had themselves a revolution. They overthrew the government. I want to overthrow the government. I want to kill some sons of bitches. I'm going to join the Bolsheviks. So Lenin had to spend the early years of the Communist International saying, now guys, yeah, we had a violent revolution. Yeah, we overthrew capitalism. We established the workers' government, but there was a lot that went into it. That's not all we did. And if you read, I've got it up here, right? If you read Lenin's speeches to the congresses of the Communist International, which if you can get a copy of this book, I strongly recommend it. Lenin's speeches to the congresses of the Communist International. They're very good. And he's urging these parties that joined the Communist International, he's urging them. The idea is, that they should form real parties and they should just not go around promoting violent revolution all the time. They shouldn't fetishize illegality. They shouldn't fetishize illegal methods. They shouldn't boycott elections. They should not simply present themselves as advocates of violent revolution. And that was the first period of the Communist International. And that's when Lenin wrote his book, Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. And he's urging all these people that are joining the Communist International, like Sylvia Pankhurst, who was a great feminist, suffragist leader in Britain, and others. He's saying, guys, we get it. You like us because we had a violent revolution, but we're not just bomb throwers. Like, in order to take power, we used very sophisticated methods and organizing. We're not terrorists. We're not left adventurists. And if you want to do what we did, you got to operate differently. And that was the first period of the Communist International, was the fight against ultra-leftism. And then the fight against ultra-leftism led to the development of the United Front. Lenin says, instead of just going around and screaming bloody revolution all the time, what you should advocate doing is you should try to build a united front. Try to get the social democrats and the anarchists and the labor unions and different forces to engage in united action that would benefit the whole working class. Free the political prisoners, 8-hour workday. Start trying to organize national days of action, national campaigns that all the working class movement can sign on to. That's what Lenin urged the communists around the world to do. It was called the United Front. To build up working class power, communists should try to build a coalition that includes other forces in the working class movement in order to show the working class that the Soviet Union and the communist parties are on their side, in order to build up working class power, to build up working class resistance and strengthen labor unions, etc. That was the idea. And it worked okay. I mean, they had some achievements. But the response of the Social Democrats was to go into an anti-communist frenzy. The Social Democrats, the Socialist Party of America, the American Federation of Labor banned all communists from joining unions. The German Social Democrats murdered communists in the streets. And all over the world, the response of the Social Democrats to the communists wanting to work with them and wanting to cooperate with them was to become vicious anti-communists. In fact, they even had a slogan: our main enemy is on the left. And the Social Democrats became more and more reformist, more and more supportive of imperialism, and more hostile to the communist parties, demonizing the Soviet Union, demonizing the communist parties as foreign conspirators loyal to this other country, the Soviet Union. The United Front had some successes, but it was met with stiff resistance by the Social Democrats. In the 1920s, the U.S. economy was very strong. You had the Roaring 20s. But towards the end of the 1920s, 1927, 1928, it became pretty clear there was going to be a capitalist crisis. The stock market hadn't crashed yet like it did in 1929. The Great Depression hadn't exactly begun, but it became pretty clear that things were going to change. And Stalin had his fight with Trotsky, and he had his fight with Bukharin. He first defeated Trotsky, then he defeated Bukharin, and Stalin and his faction became the leaders of the Communist International. 1928, the Communist International had the 6th World Congress. And at the 6th World Congress, they changed the policy. And instead of advocating a united front, the Communist International advocated a united front from below, meaning that they weren't going to try and unify with the leaders of the Socialist Party. They weren't going to try and unify with the leaders of the American Federation of Labor. They weren't going to try and unify with the anarchists. They were going to focus on going to the masses with their politics. Not on fighting with the Social Democrats, not on fighting with the anarchists, not on fighting with the labor union leaders, but simply going to the masses of people with their politics. And when the stock market crashed, 1929, when the Great Depression began, doing this, the communists kicked ass. They organized the unemployment councils, huge hunger marches of the unemployed. Thousands and thousands of people joined unemployed hunger marches led by the Communist Party. They organized labor unions among the workers that the American Federation of Labor wouldn't organize. The factory workers, the industrial workers, the textile workers in Gastonia, North Carolina, the sharecroppers in the Deep South, the black workers, the foreign-born workers. They organized unions in places that the regular labor unions wouldn't organize them. Okay, they won't organize them, then we will. We're not going to wait for them to do it. We're not going to go to the American Federation of Labor's convention and argue with them about why they should do it. We're just going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it. And if they want to cooperate with us in doing it, great. If they don't, they don't. And this was the period in which the Communist Party gained membership very rapidly. This is the period where William Z. Foster wrote his great book, Towards Soviet America. This was the period where the Communist Party organized huge protests and strikes and demonstrations. And they did it by just saying, you know what? We're gonna do it ourselves. The Social Democrats don't want to work with us. And they had a lot going for them. They had the Soviet Union that was having an economic boom while the rest of the planet was having a Great Depression. And there was a big capitalist crisis. There were a lot of hungry people who wanted to be organized, who didn't know anything about communism or socialism. They just knew they were hungry. And somebody showed up and said, I'm organizing all the families to go to City Hall and demand jobs and worker wages. And people said, okay, they sound good to me. There's a poem that was written during this period. It was written by, I can't remember his name. He was a novelist. I think it was Quinn, Michael Quinn. Was it Mike Quinn, the guy who wrote the Big Strike? Quinn, right? He wrote the history of the 1934. Yeah, Mike Quinn. Mike Quinn, who was a Communist Party member, who was a writer. He wrote a poem during these years. He said, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. So she gave them red banners and taught them to yell, and they marched to City Hall and raised holy hell. You know, obviously that's a spoof on the classic Mother Goose children's rhyme. But that was what they did. People were hungry, people were starving, and the communists said, we got the Soviet Union to have our back. We got our organization. Screw you, social democrats. Screw you, anarchists. Screw you, middle-class intellectuals. Screw you, labor leaders. We're going it alone. We're doing it ourselves. And they did some great work. Now, later, after they did all that great work, things changed. Eventually, they did form an alliance to defeat the fascists. After Hitler came into power and after the rise of fascism, it became necessary to change their tactics. And 1935, you had the 7th World Congress of the Communist International, and they completely shifted their tactics to build a popular front against fascism. And suddenly they were aligning with the Social Democrats again to defeat the fascists. And that was correct, too. Right? Sometimes you need to form alliances. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're better to work in a group. Sometimes you're not. Right? There's no law. There is no law. It is not a moral question. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. The question is, are we achieving our goal? Are we getting done what we need to get done, or ain't we? And if we are achieving our goal, if we're moving ahead toward what we want to achieve, then what we're doing is the right thing to do. But if what we're doing is not leading us to achieve what we want to achieve, then we got to do something else. That's the only rule here. It's not Little League Baseball. In Little League Baseball, they tell the kids, oh, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. All that matters is if you play the game. Well, that's great. That's a great way to teach kids about athletics and sports and sportsmanship and etc. But in politics, in building a revolutionary movement, all that matters is whether you win or lose. Nothing else really matters. The object is to win. And if you're operating in a way in which you are not moving toward victory, then you must change your tactics. Vladimir Lenin very famously said that if the situation changes in 24 hours, the tactics must also change in 24 hours. 1928, it was very clear that united front from below was the right tactic. 1935, it became very clear that a popular front, a people's front against fascism was the best tactic. And critics of the Communist Party say, oh, they zigged and zagged. They zigged and zagged. Yep, they did. Because the world changes and the conditions change. And in order to get things done, you zig and you zag and you change positions. That's necessary in order to build a successful movement. Sometimes you got to change directions. You got to change the way you operate. And that's okay. You know, during the period when the Communist Party was doing the united front from below, their attitude was, you're not with the Communist Party, we don't want to talk to you. You know, that's where they hated the Cloak Makers Union because it was run by Social Democrats. And they had the song, the Cloak Makers Union. It's a no good union. It's a company union by the bosses. Those right-wing cloak makers, they are socialist fakers who play upon the workers' double crosses. The Hillquits, Dubinskys, and the Thomases are making the workers false promises. They preach socialism while they practice fascism to preserve capitalism for the bosses. right? And they said the Cloak Makers Union was no good because it was led by social democrats, by socialists. It was not led by communists. During this time, I actually just learned about this one. I didn't know this, but there was a popular song that was done by religious people who did outreach on the street. They would sing, "Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. It's good enough for me." So the Communist Party, they wrote their own version of that song. They would sing, "The whole capitalist system, the whole capitalist system, the whole capitalist system just ain't good enough for us. It is good for Norman Thomas. It is good for Norman Thomas. It is good for Norman Thomas, but not good enough for us. The whole capitalist system, the whole capitalist system, the whole capitalist system just ain't good enough for us." Meaning that all these phonies, all these reformists, they wanted to just get rid of part of the capitalist system. They wanted to get rid of the whole capitalist system. That was their approach. This is an important lesson from our history. Now, we're not in the situation that they were in years ago, right? We don't have the Soviet Union, that exists. We're not the Comintern representative party. We're not, the bona fide communist party. The Communist International no longer exists. We're in completely different circumstances. We're a small educational organization. However, in the circumstances that we are in, based on what we have observed over the last couple months, was it correct to support the Rage Against the War Machine rally on February 19th? Absolutely. Was it correct to build the Summit Against Hypocrisy in March and to invite Nick Brana and different people from different organizations and different groups to address it and be part of it? Absolutely it was. I don't have a single regret about that. Was it correct to host different speakers on July 10th at our event and give a platform to people from different organizations and highlight them at our event? Absolutely it was. Was it correct to support the August 6th Humanity for Peace rally at the United Nations? Absolutely it was correct. I have no regrets about any of that. I might regret how some people treated us, might regret how I responded to some people and the anger. I might be perplexed by some of the weird shit that has happened since then. And I don't know what to make of it. Whatever, I might be perplexed by it, but I have no regrets about what we've done. We have done nothing wrong. Maybe I got angry and spoke to some people in ways I shouldn't. Maybe some people that we worked with didn't treat us right. Maybe there's been a bunch of weird shit with some other organizations, a lot of which has nothing to do with us, and I'm just looking at and going, okay, what's going on here? This is weird. I don't know the details, and I don't want to know. Maybe that's the case. I have no regrets. We kicked ass so far this year. The year of 2023 was the year of the epic comeback of the Center for Political Innovation. The epic comeback of the Center for Political Innovation. We have kicked ass, but now that we have made our epic comeback, and now that we have kicked ass for the first 8 months of 2023, now we have to focus inward. We have to go to the gym, and we have to do some revolutionary weightlifting. It's time to strengthen our muscles. It's time to lift some weights. It's time to get on that treadmill. Now that we're back, now that we're not dead, now that we're not in the hospital anymore, we've worked ourselves back up to our health. Now we got to go to the gym, and we have got to lift some weights, and we have got to get buff. We have got to have huge revolutionary muscles, and that requires us to focus on ourselves, right? If our friends want to go hang out, we got to say, no, we're working out tonight. We're going to the gym tonight. It is time for us to engage in some revolutionary weightlifting. It is time for us to engage into some revolutionary treadmill, some revolutionary exercise, some revolutionary fitness. We have got to get our own house in order. That's what we got to do. We got to do that. And now I'm actually hesitant to make this analogy. I'm very hesitant to make this analogy because, look, if there's anyone who should not be giving advice on romance and dating, it's me. Okay? But I will say this, and this does apply, I think. Someone said that the worst time that one can ever get into a romantic relationship is when they are feeling lonely. When you're feeling lonely, when you're longing for affection, that is the worst time to start dating somebody. if your self-esteem is low, if you just want someone to hold you, if you start looking for a partner under those circumstances, you ain't going to get something good. You're going to get somebody who will be able to take advantage of your position. All right? If you go into a relationship with desperate need, people ain't going to treat you right. It's sad, but it's true. If you go into a relationship with desperate need, you're going to end up in a relationship where you don't get treated right. And that before one is ready to get into a relationship, one must be happy being alone. Isn't that interesting? There's so many contradictions in all of this, right? So many contradictions in all this. In order to have a happy relationship, you have to be happy being alone. But it's true. It's absolutely true. In order to have a happy relationship, you need to be happy without a relationship first. And I think that's kind of the situation that we're in CPI. We need to be able to have enough pull and enough strength and get enough done on our own that when we start working with people again, which I think will be probably relatively soon. I'm not, I know some stuff. I think in the future we're going to be working with people. I think it won't be that long, this period of revolutionary solitude. But I think it has to happen. I think it has to happen because right now, part of what's going on is that part of the reason that we've tolerated things that we didn't like, and part of the reason that we've not gotten the reciprocity we expected from people is because people, for whatever reason, don't perceive us as being in a place where they have to treat us right. I don't know why. Can't get inside their head. Not for me to psychoanalyze them. But there are a couple people who they don't seem to see us as important enough to be more careful in how they treat us. And on top of that, there are some people who have drifted into our spheres. I'll just be honest with you. We're troublemakers. All right? I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't care, and I don't think they necessarily mean bad, but there are some people that are not members of CPI that have drifted into our sphere of influence, our bubble, who are troublemakers. They thrive on drama. They thrive on gossip. They thrive on rumor mongering. They thrive on knowing what everyone's up to and knowing the inside story about somebody and whispering, "Oh my God, did you hear it? So said, oh my God, did you get it?" And they thrive on that. I mean, I'm just telling you the facts. There are certain people that have drifted into our coalition work and drifted into our coalition sphere that are not members of CPI, that are a little too happy when controversy happens because it gives them a reason to feel special. It gives them a reason to gossip. It gives them a reason to run to all the parties involved and feel like they are important. And we got to drop those people like it's hot, right? I'm done with them. And I think these people probably mean well. Honestly, I think that this is just, I think they're young, okay? They're young and they have their issues. And no hard feelings. I don't think they mean bad. I don't think they have negative intentions. I mean, they could for all I know. I don't know. But I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of chronically online people who thrive in gossip, who thrive in controversy, who thrive in rivalries, who thrive in thinking they have the inside scoop and running to people with rumors, and we got to drop them like it's hot. Like, I'm done with those people. I'm done with those people. And we need to be as well. Right? Because whatever these people's issues are, they be trouble, as they say. They be trouble. And we just gotta pull away from them. And now is the time that from now until December, until our Portland in December, CPI is focused on building CPI. CPI is focused on recruiting people. CPI is focused on getting butts in the seats at the December 2nd conference. CPI is focused on mobilizing our own membership to be effective. CPI is focused on CPI. From now until the end of the year, from August to the end of December, the Center for Political Innovation is focused on the Center for Political Innovation. That's what we're focused on. We are pulling back from coalition work for the time being. Now, it doesn't mean, I know Angela McCurdle of the Libertarian Party, she wants to do a stream with me. We were originally going to do it on Thursday, but we have to postpone because of some of this stuff. And that's fine. And the door is open. Whenever she's ready to do that, I'll do it. And I'll still interview people on these streams, and I'll still, have guests and stuff like that. But in terms of our activities as an organization, CPI is now, from now until January, we are focused on CPI activities and CPI activities only. Right? We're not having events and giving platforms to other people. We're not sponsoring rallies with other groups. We're not promoting other organizations. We're focused on getting our own house in order, because we had our epic comeback, and now we've got to get our own house in order. And there's no way around it. And we're not burning bridges. These people that are having drama, they're not our enemies. And we would be fools if we were to attack these people publicly and make a big thing out of it. We'd be fools. We'd be fools if we pretended we know what's going on. We don't really fucking know what's going on. Honestly, we don't, and there are so many different controversies happening in our little bubble. So many different controversies happening. Many of them have nothing to do with CPI, but they're also weird as hell. And we just got to pull back. We've got to pull back so we don't get caught in the crossfire. I have never seen the level of rumor mongering. I have never seen the level of weird shit that I've seen. And in order to not get caught in the crossfire, we have to pull back. Superman. I love Superman. Superman really represents the best of every, if communism comes to America, it'll be like Superman takes over America, because Superman represents everything good in the American spirit, right? He's a humble guy. He doesn't like violence. He's anti-racist. He's against nuclear weapons. He believes in peace. And he's called the Man of Steel. He's named Stalin. His name in Russian is Stalin. Superman is so awesome, so many ways. But one of the things is, every so often Superman just can't handle it. So what does Superman do? He flies to his fortress of solitude. He flies to that ice castle. That ice castle he built for himself in the North Pole. And he just chills out there. The humans have just gotten to him so much. He just needs to focus on getting his own shit in order. Folks, we just released an amazing documentary film that was all a CPI film. It features various people, but the film itself, putting on the event, and the film, that was all CPI. And that film is beautiful. Jeff Young loved our film, just tweeted about how amazing it was. Peter Coffin did an excellent job with our film. In addition to that, I am about to publish a book. And this book, the people who have read it so far have said, whoa, it is not what people are expecting. And I'm so proud of this book I'm about to publish. Not at all. We're going to support them, but we're going to support them. Absolutely. No, we're not pulling back from supporting and highlighting this case. We highlight it as much as we possibly can. And I'll talk about that though. We're not pulling back from supporting them. mean, but we're supporting them on our own. I mean, we're supporting them our own way, you know, I mean, we're supporting them on our own, but we're supporting them. We're not going to pull back from supporting them, you know. No, this doesn't affect our coalition. We will not stop raising that case at every opportunity, John. I mean, every live stream I do as a hands-off Uhuru thing in it. The Uhuru movement was a big part of this great documentary that Peter Coffin just made. We're not going to stop highlighting that case. I consider that to be part of our very identity is supporting Uhuru. So don't have any question about that. But yeah, Superman, you know, he flies into that fortress of solitude every so often. He flies into that fortress of solitude, and you know, we just put out a great film. We're about to publish a new book, and we're about to have an amazing conference in December in Portland, and we're going to fill that place up, and it is going to be a show like you've never seen. We got some high-tech equipment for our July 10th event, but we had just acquired it and we hadn't had enough time to experiment with it, and we weren't able to use this high-tech equipment for our July 10th event, right? We had so much going on at our July 10th event. We had this high-tech equipment to make it a really good show. Not going to reveal too much, but we couldn't end up using it. We didn't have the right, technical difficulties. Those technical difficulties will not be in place in Portland. In addition to that, I may add, in addition to that, there are other high-tech things. This Portland conference is going to be badass. We have a whole strategy for promoting it. We're doing outreach. We're training our organization in the methods of doing outreach. What we're going to do in Portland, we are going to test our own abilities, and we're going to refine our skills as an outreach-oriented organization. And we're going to have a badass conference December 2nd in Portland, Oregon. Might be a few guests there. Maybe not. Just depends. But we're going to have a badass CPI conference in Portland, Oregon. That's all us. And I'm hoping that room is full of new people. And I think we can do it. That room will be full of new people. Question is how many? I think we can easily fill that room with 200 new people. We can have an event like no other. But it's important that we focus on refining our skills so that when we do coalition work in the future, we do so from a place of our own strength, where we don't feel reliant on these people, where we don't feel that we're in a situation where people can take us for granted. And also we need to do so in a way that we need to pull away at the moment from certain drama potent circles. Let me just put it that way. We need to pull away from some certain drama potent circles where weird shit is happening. But I think that's fine. I think that's great. And yeah, there you go. So on that note, folks, why don't we do the roll call? Names and locations. And I'll call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. And then from there, I'll start answering your super chat and Rumble rant and Rockfin questions. We'll do it that way. All right. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? I see Che Guchlev says Brooklyn lad. All right. That's good. He's in Rumble. Very good. Names and locations. I'm looking at all three apps. Names and locations. I see. Oh, wow. People are coming in. EV from New Jersey. Welcome, EV. Ryan in Kansas City. Domingo in New Jersey. Ryan in Kansas City. Killian in Milwaukee. St. David's, Bermuda. Bendigo, David Fox. Jonathan C. in Los Angeles. Sam in Milwaukee. Jenny in Cincinnati. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Balthazar in Oakland. Welcome. Names and locations. Jamie in St. Paul. Welcome, Jamie in St. Paul. So glad to have you here with us. Jamie in St. Paul. Welcome. Jamie in St. Paul. So glad to have you here with us tonight. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Ragin' Cajun Chris in Texas. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Clinton Fraser in London. Are you going to have coffee and donuts in Portland tonight? Like, what are you talking about? I don't drink coffee, but yeah, we have coffee and donuts at our events often. John McCarthy in Chicago. Gabby Hernandez in Chicago. Brendan in northern New Jersey. Patrick in Maine. Carl in Washington. Quito, Ecuador. David Fox says, shout out to all the Australian comrades. Mindanao to Midwest Lumpia Logic. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Auckland, New Zealand. Kiwi Corner is on the Rumble. Very, very good. Very, very good. I don't see anything on the Rockfin. Don't see anything on Rockfin, but I see Maria in Cyprus. I see Zach Brunch in Virginia. Welcome, 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 Zach. Zach has a great TikTok, by the way. Shout out to you, Zach. Shout out to you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. I've thought about maybe streaming on Kick. What do people think about that? Right? I see that there's this streaming app called Kick, and I might be able to do a streams from Kick. I might do that. So what do people think? Is it worth streaming on Kick? Is it worth it? Should I do that? Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Names and locations. Is it worth trying Kick? Should I try out Kick as an app? Oh, Jenny Lynn says yes. Jenny Lynn says yes. Well, if Jenny Lynn says so, I guess we have no choice. No, but I might give it a try. We'll see. We'll see. I'll just I set up an account on Kick, and we'll see if I end up doing that. So now, before we start answering super chat questions, I actually want to just show a little bit of the documentary that Peter Coffin made. If you haven't seen it already, just want to show a little bit of it on the screen here. The theory behind law and punishments and courts and all of that is that it's to deter crime. But we have a situation where it's actually set up, they want people to commit crime so they can then jail them and make money off of it. And that's contrary to everything we've ever been taught about why we have law and courts and the state to begin with. Capitalism in the United States is broken down to the point that they can't really make money off of people in factories anymore. They don't have room for these people at the assembly line. So how are you going to squeeze profit out of all these excess people?
The criminal justice system, which is actually a system of injustice, is a poverty management system, so that the ruling class can maintain its power and control. That's ultimately what our justice system does.
There were a couple lawyers that I thought were going to come on board, and they don't want to get too involved.
How much money has been spent on the war on drugs? Trillions of dollars.
They've criminalized homelessness in most urban areas in the United States. Here in New York City, it's particularly bad. I mean, they jail people for sleeping on park benches because they don't have a place to live. People get a ticket and then they're not able to pay it. So then they get another ticket, or they get their car impounded because they don't have the money to pay their first ticket. And it just turns into a vicious cycle. Wealthy people hire the good lawyers who know how to play the game. Low-income people get a public defender who tells them to plead guilty, so they don't have to do as much work. And that's our legal system here in the United States.
I stopped into the local courthouse in Montgomery, Alabama. And that morning there were 67 people in jail garb and chains around their ankles and waists and wrists. All of them were black. As I watched the court hearing, it became clear to me that not a single one of them was charged with a crime. And one by one, the people whose lives were being discussed would get up in front of the judge and beg for mercy.
But I'm begging you, please. It's been 15 years.
They would say things like, Your Honor, I have 4 children. Please don't take me away from my kids. Another man got down kneeling on the floor of the courtroom and begged for mercy. I can't afford these tickets. Please don't put me in jail. And for each one, the judge said, unless you pay me $1,000, $2,000, I'll throw you in jail. I later learned, as I was sitting there, that the person I thought was the prosecutor was actually the public defender. And it turned out that the city of Montgomery's contract for public defense told this man that he wouldn't be paid unless enough money was collected through fees and funds.
When we talk about criminal justice, you have to talk about class. It is about targeting the poor people. It is those who've set up a system to just squeeze more and more out of those who don't have in order to enrich themselves. And race is obviously a big factor. And there's a lot of discussion about that. But that's the way the U.S. criminal justice system has been set up. The poor people get targeted and the rich get away with it.
When we think about common crimes, for example, burglaries, grand larceny, shoplifting, 5 to 10 times more money is taken by corporations through wage theft than in all of those crimes in the United States combined. But you don't see any of these corporations, these CEOs and CFOs and COOs and boards of directors going to prison, do you? No. Why? They run the show. They're part of the mechanism. They're part of the bureaucracy that runs the machine. So why would they go?
If you're poor and you get caught gambling with dice, you can go to jail. But Wall Street is a giant gambling casino for rich people. That's one of the examples that's listed in the book called Unusual Cruelty, the complicity of lawyers in the criminal injustice system. We had a very successful event in New York City. We focused on how the criminal justice system targets the poor. We wanted to theme the discussion around this book.
If you don't have money and you are a person of color, the system is completely rigged against you. It's really frightening. But I thought the book really detailed it.
If you think that the people that are running the punishment bureaucracy are in good faith, just trying to make us all have flourishing lives and live better, you might think that the solution is to just give them some more information and more data. There's overwhelming research that the programs that already exist, permanent supportive housing, investing in safe places for community.
Now, because this is me, you know that we didn't just talk about this. We talked about Kamala Harris in the documentary. It gets into Kamala Harris. And yes, we even talked about Stalin. And I'll show you, we even talk about Stalin at one point. So I'll show you a little bit of that too. Socialism wasn't the guillotines. It wasn't the firing squads. It wasn't the persecution. That's not what people remember the strength of socialism being. They just did a poll. 75% of Russians say that the Soviet Union was the best time in their history. They're not thinking that because of executions. This was from a PBS documentary. They interviewed a woman named Tatiana Fedorova.
Stalin set a task. Build this or build that. And thanks to the fact that people trusted him, and this enthusiasm of young people, it was possible. Remember, this was a country where people were illiterate, lived in virtual darkness, wore birch bark shoes. Even now, I think it's like something out of a fairy tale. How is it possible at one of the most difficult times to raise these great construction sites? It was only possible through the unity of the people and the love of the people for their idol.
And the reason Stalin remains wildly popular in Russia, it's not because he executed people, it's because he mobilized them to build that country up from nothing. This was a country. He built some of the world's largest power plants. He wiped out illiteracy. He built a modern industrial country. He raised millions of people up out of poverty. And then they fought off the Nazi invaders, and then they rebuilt the country again. And a few years later, they were the first country in outer space. And the strength of socialism was not that it punished people and that it persecuted people, but rather that it enabled people to go out and build and construct. I've said to many people, I'm not a socialist because I want to destroy America. I'm a socialist because I want to save America. And we have to save America from the horrors that are being unfolded by an irrational system where profits come before people. I want to save America. I want to build a better world. If all the apparatus they've created for destroying people, for imprisoning people, for breaking people psychologically, could be utilized to build and to construct, the popular power would put in control of the means of production and control of the state apparatus in the United States, we could build something very, very beautiful.
They want you to be mad at Russia and China instead of the looters that are sitting not very far from here on Wall Street, who are actively getting bailouts in the billions, arguably even in the trillions, for their gambling debts. That's what we're here against, and that's why we're taking a stand for freedom of speech. Because they're going after the movement, and anyone who stands against the imperialists, because they know a real threat that's rising. They know we authentically represent the American people. They know that the American people are ready for a change and ready for an end to the wars. And that's why they're cracking down on our First Amendment. They're cracking down on our Fourth Amendment. They're cracking down on all of the civil liberties we know and love.
For years, it's been acknowledged that the way the war on drugs was carried out in the 1980s was racist. It was unfair to black people. Communities of color were targeted. Drugs that were used more by black communities had higher prison sentences than drugs that were used by white people. And the black community was singled out. And it was, they talked about super predators and crack babies. And it was a whole thing demonizing black people.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy.
And now, many people have pointed out that now that the opioid epidemic has hit white America, there's much more compassion now for drug addicts because of that. Well, that's true, and that's unfair. But we shouldn't see this as an opportunity to go, oh, you're racist. We should see this as an opportunity for solidarity. Finally, white communities are learning how bad the war on drugs was. Finally, they're learning how these repressive drug laws can be used. We should see this as an opportunity for solidarity. And the same for police brutality. For years, the black community was targeted with vicious killings and shootings, and the white community would make excuses for them and say, oh, well, you must have been doing something bad. But now, there's a very strong feeling among low-income white people that the government is coming for our rights. They're going to come take our guns away. They're going to take our civil liberties away. Now we have white Americans that are upset about the state and the uncontrolled power of the state and the way it's repressing working people. Again, should we see this as an opportunity to go, oh, you're racist, you didn't care about it before? Obviously, we can acknowledge what black people go through and how it's obviously worse for black people than it is for white people. There's no reason to poo-poo that. But the attitude that the woke folks have is wrong. The attitude that we just call people out and condemn them, rather than seeing this as an opportunity to organize real solidarity, that needs to be gotten rid of. And with CPI, that's what we're doing. With that event that we had, it was great. People don't realize how difficult things can be. It's very hard to have an event in New York City, but it's worth doing because it solidified our community. It showed we're able to bring people together of different perspectives. We had it in a space that was acquired for us by a local church that's very conservative. It redirected the conversation. We talked about a very important issue that is talked about a lot now, but we talked about it in a different way. We talked about it in a way that can build a real coalition and move ahead on this issue. We redirected the conversation away from kind of a wokist blame game message.
White people are racist. All white people are racist. There's no exceptions.
Into a solidarity, anti-imperialist message tied in with the global struggle as well. We connected it with the global struggle.
Under capitalism, a lot of the biggest industries are the most criminal, non-productive, and destructive industries. War being the chief among them. War is legalized murder. It is taking an action that if anybody was to commit, they would be imprisoned potentially for life or executed in some states, and then stating that this action is legal when committed in mass.
The amount of positive responses we've been getting on the street, the amount of people who were giving us thumbs up and telling us they supported us. I mean, this is New York City. I mean, we were in Central Park at one point. That's like Rachel Maddow's neighborhood practically. But yet people were giving us thumbs up and supporting us. People know what's going on. They know that these wars that they're waging are bullshit. They know our civil liberties are being taken away. They know that this country is run by a group of rich and powerful people who do not care about us. And we have to unify these sentiments into a united front, into an anti-monopoly coalition.
All right. So there you go. That is just some of the film. So go and watch it and go and promote it, please. Let a lot of other people watch it. It was a really great film, really highlighting that issue and talking about it in a way. We managed to talk about Kamala Harris in the film. We talked about the Uhuru movement, quite a bit about the prosecution the Uhuru movement is facing, quite a bit about Stalin, as you saw. You know, we managed to get all the important CPI stuff in there. So please help us promote this film. Please help us promote this film. And so now I'm going to start answering people's questions. So the first 2 questions are Rumble Rant questions. Is there a socialist song that is most similar to Rich Men North of Richmond? You know, the song that comes to my mind, you know, one song that comes to my mind, just the first song that comes to my mind is I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister. That song comes to my mind. It's not exact, it's a different tone. It's not like as painful. I guess it's a little more like, I don't know, not, I guess, you know, sarcastic. Let me see if I can find a version of somebody performing it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister. All right. Let me see if I can put that one on for y'all. Right? I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister. It's kind of a similar class struggle song, right? It's a 1930s class struggle song about, you know, the rich people who don't care and the suffering of the working class. So let me put that on for you. I'll put on I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister, which was, I believe it was written it's written by Jim Garland, who was a folk singer, a communist folk singer in the 1930s. And we'll put that on since you asked so nicely, Rumblers. Since you asked so nicely, I will put on I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister, which kind of reminds me, it's a similar tone. So there we go. All right, there we go. Okay. Now it's downloaded, and now I put it on the desktop, and then I wait for it to come onto the desktop because my computer is slow, so that now it's on the desktop. Okay. All right. And so now, and now we try to import the file, and we wait, and we wait, and we wait. Oh, and it came in rather quickly this time. There we go. All right. I Don't Want Your Millions, Mister.
I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring.
Oh boy. I'm sorry. That is not how that song goes. And my goodness, you can't trust modern folk singers, can you? Right? You know, they always want to take liberties with songs. That is not how that song goes. I must apologize. Must apologize to you all. You know, I have to look for a version that it's not gonna, you know, smack my YouTube channel with suppression by putting it on. But that version of that song was, I don't know what that was. That was not how that song goes. All right, we're doing another version here. Hold on, folks. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm the kind of person that wants the tune to actually be knowable. I want to actually understand the lyrics. And yes, I don't know, man. There you go. Maybe is this my inner conservative? Is this me being anal, right? Is this like, I just can't stand it when someone takes a tune that I know and butchers it like that. And I, you know, I especially like hymns, for example. Hymns always have a strong melody, right? And I look for a hymn, and I find somebody who's like being crazy with their voice and singing that hymn, and I'm just like, how dare you do that to me? But there we go. All right. This is Raymond Crook, and I'm sure that he does a good job with this song. There we go. All right. Raymond Crook. I know that he.
Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. I don't want your Rolls Royce, mister. I don't want your pleasure yacht. All I want is food for my my babies. Now give to me my old job back. We worked to build this country, mister, while you enjoyed a life of ease. You've stolen all that we built, mister. Now our children starve and freeze. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. Yes, you have a land deed, mister. The money is all in your name. But where's the work that you did, mister? I'm demanding back my job again. Think me dumb if you wish, mister. Call me green or blue or red. There's just one thing that I know, mister. Our hungry babies must be fed. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. We'll organize together, mister, in one big united band, and with a farmer Labour Party, we will win our just demands. Take the two old parties, mister. No difference in them I can see, but with a farmer Labour Party, we will set the workers free. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again.
Yeah, that's a classic American folk song. Take the two big parties, mister. No difference in them I can see. But with the farmer Labor Party, we can set the workers free. Yeah, now the next Rumble rant question I got was someone asked me about songs from the U.S. Civil War. Well, I love Civil War songs, right? I love them all, many of them, right? Tramp, 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 the boys are marching. Cheer up, comrades, they will come. There's so many Civil War songs I like, right? John Brown's Body, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and Battle Cry of Freedom. I mean, I really love Civil War songs. But here's a Civil War song that I've quoted in speeches before. And it's called Marching Through Georgia. It's just a tremendous, if you want to, I guess we got song requests in the Rumble chat, and that's great. And I'm going to put on Marching Through Georgia, because if you want to talk about a revolutionary song, it's about the liberation of plantations. It's about a lot of things. Listen to the lyrics. Oh my goodness, did I just download the wrong song? I think I did. I downloaded the wrong song, folks. Or no, I didn't. I didn't download the wrong song. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. It's just not uploaded yet. Hold on. Goodness gracious. Oh boy. Computers, right? Download the wrong song. Here it is. Marching Through Georgia. All right.
Bring the good old bugle boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with the spirit that will start the world along. Sing it as we used to sing it, 50,000 strong, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. How the people shouted when they heard that joyful sound, how the turkeys gobbled which our commissary found, how the sweet potatoes even started from the ground, while we were marching through Georgia. Yes, and there were Union men who wept with joyful tears when they saw the honor flag they had not seen for years. Hardly could they be restrained from breaking forth in cheers, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Sherman's dashing Yankee boys will never reach the coast, so the saucy rebels said it was a handsome boast. Had they not forgot alas to reckon with their host, while we were marching through Georgia. So we made a thoroughfare for freedom and her train, 60 miles in latitude, 300 to the main. Treason fled before us, for resistance was in vain, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. While we were marching through Georgia. Oh, while we were marching through Georgia.
Yeah, that's a little bit faster than it's normally done. Actually, that was the first time this artist recorded. You know, the guy calls himself Mansour Jack, and he plays like kind of leftist and revolutionary songs. And that was the first time he attempted that song. And then he realized he had done it a little bit too fast, and so he did a more, regular version of the song, which I think we can put on the more traditional. We can put on the version of the song that's done more correctly here in a second. We can do that, and I know we have other questions to answer, etc. But hey, it's late at night. We had our important conversation. Let me just add, they've already thrown so much ugly stuff out there about me. I don't know. There's nothing more to tell, right? It's all old news. You all know all my personal private bullshit. But if they want to gross you out some more, they might. And there's nothing we can do about that. Just saying, I mean, if they want to, drudge up different people and all kinds of things, I've never done anything that, I don't want to say more about it, but, I mean, it's sad. It's sad the lengths that they've gone. Don't let anyone ever tell you the Center for Political Innovation is not important, because they have spent literally millions of dollars to convince you to hate the Center for Political Innovation. I mean, they've got YouTube videos from expensive channels. The amount of money that they have poured into getting you to hate us is, we are worth a lot. We are worth a lot to the global anti-imperialist movement. And we are trying to silence us and trying to smear us and inoculate people against us is worth a lot to the ruling class, because I've never seen anything like it, and it's the biggest compliment that we can get, really, is the fact that they feel a need to smear us as much as they do. So just keep that in mind. I don't know what they've got up their sleeves, and there will be more dirty tricks. There will be more smearing of me. There'll be more attempts to, use the gross factor to take things that should be private and make them public. And, it is what it is, and I don't care. And I just want to get that out of the way too. But anyway, marching through Georgia, this is him doing it more the traditional.
Bring the good old bugle, boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with the spirit that will start the world along. Sing it as we used to sing it, 50,000 strong, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. How the people shouted when they heard that joyful sound. How the turkeys gobbled with the commissary found. How the sweet potatoes even started from the ground, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Yes, and there were Union men who wept with joyful tears when they saw the honored flag they had not seen for years. Hardly could they be restrained from breaking forth in cheers while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Sherman's dashing Yankee boys will never reach the coast, so the saucy rebels said it was a handsome boast. Had they not forgot, alas, to reckon with their host? Well, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. So we made a thoroughfare for freedom and for train, 60 miles in latitude, 300 to the main. Treason fled before us, for resistance was in vain, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang that chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching, while we were marching, while we were marching through Georgia.
All righty. Very good. All right. Also, shout out to Ellie in Chicago. She's watching on the Rockfin. So you have been noticed. So have no fear, Ellie, and you are a beloved member of this community. All right. So someone's asking me about the China 2049 plan, right? Now we know about China, made in China 2025, but the China 2049 economic challenges for a rising global power. The China 2049 initiative. By 2049, the Chinese government aims to build a modern socialist society that is prosperous, strong, democratic, and culturally advanced and harmonious. Well, I got to say that, the Chinese Communist Party is always making plans. They are always making plans for the future. Always. I mean, they have a 5-year plan all the time, and they've got plans for future decades. And that is one of the good things about them, is that they are all about results. They are all about results. And, they've been saying that the goal is to build a prosperous socialist society by 2049. They talk about the Chinese dream. And sometimes these plans are vague. Sometimes they're more specific. The Chinese Communist Party is all about results. And if they ain't delivering the results, then there's a problem. They test policies in local areas before applying them on a national scale. I would really recommend, there's a great presentation that was given to a CPI class. One of the first classes we ever had was called Introduction to Socialism with Chinese Characteristics. And I would recommend watching this class. I put it on my YouTube channel, and it got 249, or it got 24,000 views. And I'll drop it, drop it in the link. We have it on our website. We have it on our website. Actually, people can watch it there as well. But I would recommend that people watch this class. It's taught by a Chinese American lawyer who is a friend of ours. It was a really great presentation he gave, in which he goes over, socialism with Chinese characteristics, what it means, etc. I would recommend people watch that to learn how they implement their 5-year plans, how Chinese government policy is based on goals, etc. So there you go. There you go. All righty. All righty. So we got that. Late to the stream, I heard you watched Oppenheimer. What were your thoughts on it? Well, I will give a more thorough reaction in the future. I guess, the big reaction that Peter Coffin had, that he made me aware of beforehand, was that they misrepresented Marx, and that while communism is a really big part of the plot, right? It's a big, really relevant part of the plot. There's very little extrapolation of what communists believe or why one might believe it. And that is, to a modern audience, that weakens the film significantly, right? They have him saying that property is theft. That's not Marx, that's Proudhon. Marx polemicized against that. Marx never said property is theft, right? Marx specifically distinguished between personal property, private property, and that the only reference to what communists actually believe is that. They vaguely reference the Spanish Civil War and the Spanish Republic, and they they show you how influential communists were in intellectual circles and high achieving intellectual circles in the 1930s, but they don't really get into what communists believed, why they believed it. You do see that, that Oppenheimer was a guy who did so much for the ruling class. He helped them. He was the father of the atomic bomb, and they still turned against him because he dared speak up for peace. So I enjoyed it to some degree or other. Not the best movie I've ever seen, but I didn't hate it necessarily. I wished it talked more about the politics, because the reason they went after Oppenheimer, and this is one thing Hollywood movies often do, and it's almost like, they did it with the Hoover movie as well. Leonardo DiCaprio made a movie about J. Edgar Hoover, and they did this in the Hoover movie, where they make it about personal rivalries. And not about politics, right? The reason they went after Oppenheimer and smeared him and took his security clearance away was because, as the father of the atomic bomb, he had a certain level of credibility to warn about the danger of nuclear war. And he became kind of a peace activist against the Cold War in the 1950s. And so the military-industrial complex couldn't have the guy who basically invented the atomic bomb going around and telling everyone we need to de-escalate and make friends with Russia. And they make it about a rivalry he had with a guy he worked with. Well, was that a factor? Sure. But the main issue was that he became a peace activist. It wasn't this rivalry he had with an ex-friend. Also, I thought the film glossed over the fact that the strike on Japan was not militarily necessary, right? That Japan was offered the same surrender immediately before the dropping of the bomb that they gave afterwards. And the film glosses over that as well. It kind of sticks with the standard script that the dropping of the atomic bomb saved American lives and Japanese lives, which it did not do. The dropping of the atomic bomb, it was not militarily necessary. It was done simply to demonstrate that the bomb existed to the Soviet Union. Japan was already ready to surrender. So it ignores that fact as well. Overall, was it interesting? Yes. It showed a guy and a very important scientist who was friendly with communists and had communist sympathies at one point in his life. And it shows that he was a non-conforming person, that he was a bit of an eccentric person, a bit of a strange person, and that he had a moral conscience and was concerned about the danger of nuclear war, and that the U.S. government retaliated against him for that. So overall, okay, Was it the best movie I've ever seen? No. Was it politically limited? Absolutely. And I may give future thoughts on it after I get my thoughts together. Sometimes you have to process a movie that you just saw. It was a bit long, and there was a lot of scenes of people talking, right? And that they could have made it a lot more. They could have put a lot more action into the movie, but there were a lot of scenes of just people talking. So there you go. Alrighty. And they could have shown that Albert Einstein, Albert Einstein he was an anti-imperialist. He donated to the Communist Party's defense fund. He spoke at the Waldorf Peace Conference in 1949. And they could have shown Albert Einstein in a different light as well. They could have shown that Albert Einstein was a bit of a peace activist and an anti-imperialist, had communist sympathies, praised Lenin, praised Stalin. They didn't show that, which is unfortunate. That really would have added something if they'd have shown that. And the movie wasn't about Einstein. It was about Oppenheimer. But they did show Einstein, but they never, they didn't want to admit that Albert Einstein had leftist politics either, which I thought was a weakness as well. Can you speak about the upcoming BRICS summit and the growing alliance between Russia and China and Africa? Well, if you watch RT now, we talk about Africa nonstop. Our focus is on Africa, and that Africa is the future of the world. BRICS is in the process. It looks like the process of building a new currency with BRICS is speeding forward. It's speeding ahead, and it looks like there's talk of an alternative SWIFT system. It's like what Biden has done has, the process of the developing world breaking and establishing economic independence of countries that have kind of been neutral, being forced to get friendlier to Russia and China. All of this has been expedited. And so we're seeing with the BRICS summit, we're seeing the development of a new economy. This is solidifying a process that Biden essentially expedited by going all in against Russia and demanding that the rest of the world go along with him. What I will say is that if there is a new BRICS currency, I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. almost immediately outlaws it. If they do that, though, that will only isolate the United States further and expedite the collapse of the dollar. Yeah, but the world is moving out of the domination of Western imperialism when we should celebrate it. And we should want the United States to join this new economy instead of propping up the British, imperialist system, the imperialist monopolies. The bulk of the American economy would benefit from being friends with the BRICS countries. It is only the small imperialist minority that benefits from the policies of the United States right now. And that's what we need to keep in mind. It would be better for America to join the Belt and Road. It would be better for America to join the BRICS. And it's not the United States that the BRICS is resisting. It is the imperialist system, the British financial system, the Atlanticist global order. That is what it is. And you have to keep that in mind, right? We're not celebrating the BRICS because it's anti-American. We're celebrating the BRICS because it's a move against a system that is based in London and Wall Street that is also anti-American, right? That is anti-American, right? It is in America's interest to stand with Russia and China. We got to make clear. A lot of times the way I was trained to talk in the Workers' World Party was like, well, we celebrate countries that are fighting the United States. No, we are the United States. And the British imperialist system, the Atlanticist system is against the interests of the United States. Everything we do as anti-imperialists is in America's interest. We love our country. And the bankers on Wall Street do not love our country. All right. We've got to make that clear. Now, some say that the working class is becoming semi-lumpen. Well, the definition of lumpen, lumpen doesn't just refer to deteriorating economic conditions. Lumpen basically means that your means of survival is not getting a paycheck, but rather surviving by means of, of kind of grifting off your own class, right? If you're a drug dealers, right, they're not, they're not going and selling themselves to a boss every day. They're preying on members of their own class by getting them addicted to drugs, making money off members of their own class, becoming drug addicts, right? A thief who robs people, right? He's robbing members of his own class. And that lumpen by definition means you're not in a factory or working for a big corporation creating value that is then, expropriated by a capitalist. You're not creating value. You're grifting on the margins of society. And Marx uses the analogy of the banker, right? That, the big bourgeoisie, the ultra rich, they're not creating value in factories either. They're bankers, right? And that the lumpen are also just, kind of grifting on they're not creating value. They're grifting off value that already exists, right? And Marx uses that analogy, how Louis Bonaparte was very similar to the lumpen proletarians he organized, and that he was grifting off society. Criminal elements, they don't create value, they grift off society, right? Drug dealers, gangs, swindlers, intellectual middle class elements, those kind of folks that have kind of a precarious existence and they're not creating any value. They're what you call lumpen, in the sense that they're not part of the value creating working class, and they're involved in criminal activities, and they're on the edge of starvation. They're in desperate condition. The lumpen is not defined by getting poorer. Yes, the American working class is getting poorer, but most workers, Uber drivers, they're not lumpen, right? They're working for Uber, right? And they're creating value for Uber, and they're exploited by Uber, and they might make very low wages to do what they do. They might be definitely exploited, but they're still not lumpen, right? But your local drug dealer, your local gang member, somebody who begs for money on the street, somebody who robs people for a living, somebody who somebody who's a goon, right? Who maybe a capitalist doesn't like homeless people around his business, so he hires somebody, gives somebody a little bit of money to go beat up all the homeless people and make them scared to come into his area. People like that are lumpen, right? And they're not part of the value creating class. They're lumpen, right? And that there is some overlap between what they call agents and the lumpen, right? And the police, they don't create value, but they protect the property of the capitalist, right? So they're what you might call agents, right? A manager doesn't create value, but they drive workers to create value. So they're what you might call an agent, right? And that's a subclass that they talk about, agents, right? Where they're paid a wage, but they're not producing value. They're kicking around the working class on behalf of the capitalists, and that there's an overlap, right? That lumpen can act as agents sometime, but then you have full-time employed agents, right? Lumpen are available to be agents. They may not be as reliable. So there you go. All righty. The FBI entrapped Malcolm's daughter into a plot against Farrakhan, and instead of attacking her, the Nation of Islam supported her legal defense. That is a true story, and it's a real testament to Minister Louis Farrakhan's character. Malcolm X's daughter has had a very hard life. There's no question about it. She watched her father get murdered. She was a child, and she was sitting in the audience when her father was speaking, and she watched him get shot and shot over and over again. And she witnessed with her own eyes her father being murdered. It must have been a horrendously traumatic event. And she's had mental health problems her whole life. And in the 90s, after the movie Malcolm X came out, the FBI sent a guy to become her boyfriend and become her boyfriend, and then convince her to try and, develop a plot to kill Farrakhan and then arrest her for it. And she was arrested for plotting to kill Minister Louis Farrakhan as revenge for her father. After this FBI informant, who pretended to be her boyfriend and pretended to date her, worked on her and convinced her to do it. And Minister Louis Farrakhan saw what it was, and he supported her. And he said, no, she has mental health problems. She wasn't going to kill me. And he went to her court dates. He spoke on her behalf, and he got them to reduce the charges down to almost nothing. Which is really good on Farrakhan's part. The death of Malcolm X caused a huge division among black activists, and that was part of healing that divide. You need reconciliation. You need healing. Jesus talked about, forgiveness and turn the other cheek, and we have to learn to do that, right? That's part of being a bigger person. Is every time someone slights you or offends you, you don't have to make it the end of the world. You become a stronger person when you can let bygones be bygones, and you can get over the problems that exist. Sometimes you have to demonstrate your strength. Sometimes you have to show that you can't be pushed around, but at the same time, you're not a stronger person if you hold a grudge forever, right? And that, if you're big enough to heal a divide, that reveals strength on your part. So there you go. Good question, John. Apostolic socialism and millenarianism in U.S. history. Well, millenarianism is people thinking the end of the world is coming. And millenarianism specifically refers to a trend in European feudalism, so that didn't exist in the United States. Proper millenarianism refers to a trend in feudal societies, which is that every so often in feudalism, right, under feudalism, the population, feudalism has no technological advancement. One of the attributes of a feudal society is that you have the guilds, and the guilds do not allow technological innovation. One of the rules in medieval Europe to be a blacksmith, part of the rules of being a blacksmith was you couldn't change the way blacksmiths operated. If you invented a new, more technologically advanced way of being a blacksmith, they stripped you of your blacksmithing rights and they shunned you, right? And that part of the Dark Ages, the reason it was called the Dark Ages was that there was a ban on technological progress. You couldn't make society more efficient. So under feudalism, the population cannot expand under feudalism, right? Because the population in feudalism, you can't be inventing anything. If you invent things, they burn you at the stake. And so every so often, every 100 years or so in feudalism, the population would get too large. There'd be food shortages. And in feudalism, then you would have you'd have poor people, peasants, thinking it was the end of the world. Usually they would engage in some kind of self-mutilation. They would start flogging each other or whipping each other and believing it's the end times. There would usually be somebody who came along and said he was the second coming, and there would be a big peasant war. And it would happen about every 100 years. It was called millenarianism. The popes wrote about it, and the Catholic Church described it, and it was part of the cycle of feudal society. And in China, the same thing happened, even though it wasn't a Christian civilization. I mean, they wouldn't call themselves Jesus, but there would be peasant wars, and that there'd be a dynasty that would rule, and then there would be some kind of uprising, and there would be peasant wars against it. In feudal society, every so often, the human population expands the limits of the low level of, an agrarian economy. You can't sustain much of a population on an agrarian economy. And every so often, feudalism, the human civilization, human beings expand more than the feudal mode of production can handle. That's the basis, by the way, for the flawed theory of overpopulation of Malthusianism, right? If you look at feudal society, it's true. Every so often, human beings expand more than the food supply does in feudalism, right? However, in capitalism, in a society where technological advancement is allowed, you don't have the same problem. Now you have the problem of overproduction. But, the idea that, and that's the basis of the flawed economic theories of Malthus, the idea that you have unproductive consumers. Well, in a feudal society, there's only so much that can be produced because you can't technologically advance. You can't invent anything. Right? It's just subsistence farming on a very low technological level. But in another society where technological advancement exists, you can expand. But in feudal society, yes, every so often there would be a population crisis. There would be food shortages, etc. You'd have peasant uprisings, and usually the peasant uprisings came in the form of certain religious outpourings that thought it was the end times, that rallied around some kind of Christ, savior figure. Usually there'd be self-mutilation and flogging and self-mutilation and stuff involved in it. And there would be, some kind of violent peasant uprising. A lot of people would die, and then feudal society would come back into order for 100 years. And then, they'd do the whole thing all over again. That's called millenarianism. Now, a lot of people use the term millenarianism to refer to anybody thinking it's the end of the world or the end times. That's not what it means. It refers to a specific trend in feudal society that was a result of the limits of the feudal system on technological advancement and on, human expansion. Apostolic socialism, I think, refers to, I mean, the only other person I've ever heard use the term apostolic socialism was Jim Jones, right? I don't use the term apostolic socialism. There was Christian socialism. There's liberation theology, which is a Catholic trend that started post-World War II. But, Christian socialism has existed all throughout U.S. history. There's been various Christian socialist trends. There were Christian socialist communes throughout the United States, New Harmony, Zor, etc. Mennonite Christian socialists. I would argue that, when the Mormons set up in Utah, right, the society that, they called it United Order in like Zion, New Zion or whatever they called Utah before the federal troops were sent out there. And the economic system they had was called United Order, which was basically a state-run economy. that they had. You can read about United Order. It was basically Christian socialism. Now, the Mormon Church gets very defensive about that and insists that it's not socialism, right? That socialism was invented as a distortion of their teaching. But if you look at the way the Mormon Church was running Utah before the federal troops showed up and told them they couldn't have polygamy anymore, it was more or less a state-run economy. Now, they were brutally killing the Native Americans, etc. And there were businesses and such, but it was state run. It was kind of like China, where the state controls the means of production. The church was the state, etc. So there's many examples of collectivist economics in U.S. society under the guise of Christian religious utopianism. That certainly existed all throughout U.S. history in many different places, many different places that existed. But just like Engels points out, in utopian and socialism, utopian and scientific, it was always in the context of being surrounded by capitalism, always in the context of having to trade with the capitalist society. So it was never really socialism, right? Until capitalism is completely overtaken by socialism. You're just going to see little holdouts, right? And that's one aspect of Trotskyism that I can give legitimacy to, right? Trotsky was technically right about that. That as long as socialism exists in a sea of capitalism, it's going to be limited by that. That's true. That doesn't make it not socialism. That doesn't make it hopeless. That doesn't justify the theory of permanent revolution. But that's an aspect of Trotsky's teachings where he is pointing to a true contradiction that every socialist society has faced, which is that as long as socialism exists in a sea of capitalism, it will have to buy products and import products with prices that are set by the market. And it's going to be limited in what it can achieve because of that. And that is a truth that every socialist society has had to face. So there we go. All right. And I think I answered this already. No, we are definitely not pulling back from our work. We will be supporting Uhuru as much as we possibly can, right? We do that. But most of the support for Uhuru that we do as an organization is by ourselves. Now, John has made a point of going to all their meetings and supporting them, and good for you, John, and keep doing that. And we will pay dues as members of their coalition. We will attend their national, their rallies and stuff. We're definitely going to continue supporting Uhuru with all of our might. No question about it, right? That is not up for debate. And that is, at this point, I would argue that that's a unique aspect of CPI. Nobody seems to take seriously the attacks on Uhuru as much as we do. And that frustrates me. It really, really frustrates me to see that there are many people who understand how dangerous the war is with Russia, the danger of war with Russia is, the danger of piling weapons into Kiev, but they just don't seem to get it through their heads that, if they can come for Uhuru, they can come for anybody next. And that's a really, really dangerous case. And I am frustrated with various anti-imperialist activists who kind of get it, but they don't get it. And I want to shake them and be like, you do realize if they can convict the Uhuru movement on the grounds that they can convict them, like there's a reason Tucker Carlson spoke up on their behalf. There's a reason that Glenn Beck spoke up on their behalf. If they can convict Uhuru, they can basically outlaw anti-war activism. And I just wish other anti-imperialists could understand that. And that all of your concerns about Uhuru and all of your anxieties about whatever, put them all aside, because if they can convict them on the charges that they've charged them with, they can throw all of us in jail, right? I mean, on those grounds, they could argue me making these broadcasts. It makes me an unregistered foreign agent. They could throw me in jail, right? I mean, it is a huge, huge threat to all civil liberties. And I wish other people took that case as seriously as we do. All right, folks, it's almost 2 a.m., so I'm going to put on the closing music, but we'll be back. Thanks for joining me for a late night stream. It's always a pleasure. And onward to the CPI conference in December. Upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, And the people of all countries must get prepared. Revolution is the main trend in the world today.